In this tutorial, we will learn how to filter data in R. Sometimes this is called subsetting data in R. So let's do our initial steps. I'll work through these really quickly. If you have questions about them, check out the corresponding tutorials on setting working directory, reading data into R, and joining or merging data. And so let's start off by doing File, New File, R script, and let's save, do a save as. To save our R script as something, call it test, override an existing file here, and okay, we're all ready to go. So again, we're talking about filtering data in R. And so sometimes this is referred to as a subset. So this is one way you can segment your data, in other words. So first things first, let's set our working directory here. So set working directory, set WD function, the name of my working directory, or the location of it rather, is our workshop here. This is what I need to set my working directory. Yours is probably different, but my working directory is where these two files we're going to work with today are saved. Pers data with a capital P and a capital D, and perf data with a capital P and a capital D. Okay, so let's click run to run that. Alternatively, you could go to session, set working directory, and choose directory to do it through drop-downs. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we want to read in the data files, and there's two of them this time. We're going to do a quick merge or join with them. And so to do so, we need the reader package, and presumably you've already installed this. If not, use the install.packages function to do so. And so let's go ahead and run this line here, library, and the function or the argument is reader. So we're going to access this reader package that we've previously downloaded. And then we are going to read in the two data files I just mentioned. So we'll call the first one pers d for pers data. Use the left-handed arrow here to name this new data frame. And we're using the read_csv function from that reader package. And so what's the exact name of that file? Well, we just saw a second ago when we looked at the folder, it's pers data, and we need to make sure that we add that .csv extension to it and put this all in quotation marks. So let's click run to read in that. Okay, so we've read in our pers data frame. And note that here are the variables in it. And notice that this is going to be our key variable here, our unique identifier. It's our ID variable with a lowercase ID. Okay, the next data frame that we're reading in, or data file we're going to read in as a data frame, is perf d for performance data. And so we'll use the same process here, except this time we'll read in the data file that's called perfdata.csv. And let's click run. And so if we look at perf data, we see it also has that unique identifier, that same variable that we're going to use as our key variable. Okay, and the reason I mention this is because now we're going to do a quick join or merge, and this is specifically a horizontal join or merge of the data frames. Okay, so I'm going to name this new data frame merge df, and let's do merged df actually, so past tense, because it will be soon. So put that to the left side of the left-handed arrow to say that we're going to name this. And I'm going to use actually I need to make sure I use the library function to access the dplyr package. And if you haven't already, install that using the install.packages function. Okay, which just to show you what that looks like, it would be this, and you would write this in. Type in this and make sure you'd put dplyr in quotations there. We don't need to do that actually, or at least I don't need to do this because I've recently installed this. So using the library function and putting dplyr as the sole argument will actually access the dplyr package that we've previously installed. So now we're ready to use the full join function. And if you have any questions about what this full underscore join function is, would check out the joining and merging data frames in our tutorial. Okay. And so I'm not going to use pipes here to do this. I'll actually just do this without pipes. And so what I'll do is I'll enter the first data frame name that we wish to merge horizontally, pers data. That's the first argument, separated, and then add a comma to then add the second argument, which will be the second data frame that we wish to merge with it. and then add another comma. And now we need the by argument. And this is where we put in that unique identifier variable that we'll use to match the cases between the two data frames. And by doing a full join or using this full underscore join function from dplyr, we'll retain all cases that have some data in one or both of the data frames. Okay, so now we're ready to run this. Okay, so now we have a new data frame called merge df. And here you can see it. So we retained all cases here. Some of them have missing data as represented by the NAs. Okay, so now we're ready to start filtering. And so we are actually going to be doing, we're going to be using a function called filter from the dplyr package. Because I just accessed the dplyr package here, I don't need to do that again. And the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to filter, let's say, a particular variable in the data set, so we can just select those cases that meet this logical operation. Okay, so what we'll do is let's actually create a new data frame. And so let's call this new data frame new merged df. Okay, and we'll use the left-handed arrow here. And in this case, I'm actually going to use the pipe operator. And so what I'll use is first I'm going to put in the old data frame name, and then I'm going to use the pipe operator to pipe it to the function that's from dplyr package that's called filter. Okay, and so in this filter function, as the sole argument that we're going to put in here, let's say that we want to, looking at the data frame here, we want to filter such that gender is equal to female. In other words, we're going to retain only those cases in which people have gender equal to female, and it'll exclude everybody else. Okay? And so to do so, we need to type in the exact name of that gender variable, and that was, if you noticed over here, it was gender all lowercase. And then we can use the logical operator of equals. So the double equal sign is how you would write equals if you're doing a logical operation here in R. And because this is a character variable, meaning that this is text that we're dealing with, we would want to write in female in quotation marks here. Okay? And so you can see it's female all lowercase. We need to make sure we replicate that. All right, so we're going to create this new data frame that's going to have only the female employees in it. Okay, so let's click run. And so now we'll see we have this new data frame here, and it only has 3 cases, and only those 3 cases for which gender was equal to female. Well, let's say that that's not what we wanted. We actually wanted to, let's copy this and paste it below. What we really wanted to do was say we don't want those cases where gender is equal to female. Well, the logical operator for that is exclamation point equal, which means not equal to. So we're saying we want to select those cases where gender is not equal to female. And so we're going to override this new merge df by just rerunning this here with that new logical operator. So let's click now, after we've run it, on new merge df. And you'll see, yep, now we have only those cases for which gender is not equal to female, which in this case happens to be the rest are people with male listed here. Okay? So what if we want to filter out, though, multiple specific cases? So this might come in handy at some point where you decide that you want to actually filter out specific, maybe you identify them as outliers, or maybe they no longer work in the organization. And so you just want to move them out of your data frame. Well, how would you do that? Well, we do have this nice unique identifier variable here. Okay, so we can use this to note, because it's a unique identifier, each row has its own unique value here. And so what we can do is say, oh, we want to remove 2 employees. Let's say we need to remove Linda Morales, which is ID 198, and we also want to remove Cindy Providence, which is ID 201. For whatever reason, maybe they don't work here anymore, and we only want to look at the data for people that currently work in the organization. So 198 and 201. Okay, so if we want to remove multiple cases, how would we do that? Okay, well, to do that, what we would do is we would still use that filter variable. And let's still use let's copy this as a starting point. And so we're going to, again, go from our original data frame that was merged that has all the cases and data here. And we're going to override anything that we've called new merge df here. And in this case, we're going to use the pipe again. So we're piping this data frame object into the filter function here. And then let's say that we want to exclude cases 198 and 201. And so that was for that ID variable. So we need to put the ID variable here. Okay, and let's delete this just to clean things up. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is, because we want to delete more than one unique case, we need to specify that we're doing so in a vector form, which we'll do by putting the percentage sign in and percentage sign here. So this is essentially saying within this vector, okay? And then we're going to use the C function, the combine function, to designate which values or which values for the ID variable we wish to remove, okay? So let's do 198 and 201. Now, what this is actually saying here is that this is saying we want to retain these people, okay? So watch what happens if we run this. So this will say only keep 198 and 201, which is kind of the opposite of what we want to do here. So let's go ahead and click run here and check out that data frame merge df. See, we only retained 198 and 201. That's not what we wanted to do. Okay, so what we were saying here is filter and then the ID variable such that within the ID variable cycle through this and select those cases for which the ID variable is equal to one of these values. So this retained those two cases. Now, if we want to exclude those cases, what we do is we put the not symbol, which is the exclamation point in front of ID here. So watch what happens when we rerun that with the exclamation point there. Click on the data frame. Yes, now we've excluded those two cases of 198 and 201. So that's how you would do it. Now, I should also note, how would you remove a single case? Well, it's actually quite easy. It uses the same logic as we used above in this section here. And so what we would do is, let's just copy this line here, paste here. And so we're still going to be overriding and creating this new merge df data frame, but we're piping our original data frame that was merged into the filter function. But here, let's change the gender to ID. Let's keep not equal to though, actually, because that's what we want. We want ID, let's say, not equal to 198. We only want to eliminate one of the people from our data frame. And so we're using the not equal operator. And you can actually put spaces here and it works the same way with these operators. It's really up to what you think is easiest to read, okay? So watch what happens when we do this. Click run, go to our new merged data frame, and we see 198 is not listed there anymore. We don't see that, okay? So that's how you remove a specific case there. Alternatively, we could do a greater than and say we only want to keep cases for whose IDs are greater than 198. And so we could run that and watch what happens here. Well, here we only keep two cases here for which their ID values are greater than 198. But watch what happens if we do greater than equal to 198 and run this. Now we include 198 here, okay? Because we did greater than equal to. And so this is how you can kind of work through these logical operators. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to work specifically with dates. So dates are notoriously tricky to deal with in R, and so I'm going to show you how you would actually filter by date here in this case. It's going to take a little bit more work here than maybe what you're expecting. So when I say dates, I mean variables that are of date format. And so in order to work with them, here's one of the ways that we could actually convert something to a date. So to convert a variable to a date is an important first step, because just because we think something looks like a date when we read it in, it doesn't mean that R recognizes it as a date. And to prove my point, let's do the structure function there, which is str all lowercase, and the name of our merged data frame, merged df, okay, and click run. And let's take a look. Okay, so for start date, this particular variable here, if we look at it, it looks like a date, but R is recognizing it as a character. Okay, so it's not recognizing it as something that's a date, which is, like something that's numeric. So how do we change that variable to a date? Well, what we need to do is, we can do this in two different ways. What I think I'd like to do just to illustrate this is, let's create a new variable that we're going to call start date 2, just so we can see them both instead of overriding the existing start date variable. Okay, but we need to note where this variable actually comes from. Okay, and so we're going to say that this variable belongs to this merged df data frame, which it does, or it's going to belong to this merged df data frame. We're going to add this new start date variable to our existing merged df data frame. So we'll use our left-hand arrow. So because this is coming to the left of the arrow, this is something new that we're adding here. Okay. Now we're going to use the as date, and this is important. This is from the base R package, or base R. And what you'll see is that it's as date, all lowercase, except the D in date is uppercase. And that's because when you refer to date type variables or data, R refers to them as a capital D for date. Okay. So now we are going to type in the name of the data frame that we're working with. So merge df, as well as the original start date variable. And then we need to, that's our first argument here for the asDate function. And then we need to specify the format. Okay, and so this is important here. We're going to set format equal to the common date notation here. And so the way we'll write this is %m / %d / and %y capital here. Okay, so this we're saying now specify, convert this into a new date variable that's start date 2 and in this format here. Okay, so this is just specifying that it's a date format. And let's go ahead and run this line here. Okay, so now if we go to this data frame here, we'll see we have a new variable here. It's start date 2. And you can see how this is already looks different. So here we have this /, and here we have the dashes. So this is the typical format that R automatically recognizes as a date here. Okay, so we see 2016-01 and so forth. Now let's confirm that this actually did change this to a date and a date formatted variable. And to do so, let's just reapply the str function, the name of the data frame, to check out and make sure this worked. So let's apply that and click run. And we see down here the new start date 2 variable is of type date now. Okay, so we're all good there. Now R will recognize this as a variable that is of type date. So how do we actually filter with this? Well, you follow the same process as you did before. So let's actually go up here. Let's grab just one of these to start from. So copy this line here, okay, that we created above as a starting point, paste here. And so again, we're just going to create a new, this will override the existing new merged data frame. This will be a new one. So we're going to create this new data frame here. And we are going to filter and then by start date 2, that new variable we created. And note that we're piping the merged data frame into the filter function here, which means if we look at merge data frame, this is where that start date variable lives here. Okay, so the start date variable lives in this merge df, and then we're going to, with the filter, the new subsetted data frame we create, we're going to name it this new merge df here. Okay, so let's say that we want to sort by, or we want to select those people that started after a particular date. So let's get an idea of what that might be. Okay, so we've got people, just sorting this here. Let's say that we only want to select those people that started after January 5th, 2016. Okay, so January 5th, 2016. So how would we do that? Well, first we need to say that we want this, instead of equal to, we want it to be greater than. And we still need to keep these quotation marks here even when we're working with dates. Okay. They're kind of a funky data or variable type. And here's where we need to write out in this format 2016-01, and I believe that was January 5th is what we landed on. So, you could do this to leave spaces in between. It works the same way. And so what we're saying is filter the data such that we only retain those people who started after January 1st, 2015. So let's see if this works. So highlight this, click run, and then let's go to the new merged data frame that we created or overrode the previous one that was named that. Click on this, and let's verify here. So let's sort. And yes, we can see that no one here was included that had a start date that was January 5th of 2016 or before. Okay, so that's how you would actually sort or filter with dates rather. Okay, so what if you want to remove a particular variable from your data frame? So this is another thing that comes in handy. This is kind of, you can think of this as now instead of filtering by rows or cases, we're going to filter by variables. Well, if that's the case, so if we want to remove a variable from data frame, what we would do is, let's say that we want to de-identify these data. And so specifically, we want to remove the ID variable. Actually, that's not going to work because we do have a last name and first name. Let's just say we want to remove the ID variable for some reason. Okay. And so to do so, we need to say, okay, what data frame? Well, this is the merged df data frame, $sign to say that the ID variable is attached to this data frame or it's from that. And so then if we type the left-handed arrow symbol followed by all caps NULL, we can remove that variable. So watch what happens here when I do that. I'm gonna run that line there. Let's click on the name of the data frame here, merge df, and we'll see that that ID variable is gone there. So we've essentially kind of filtered down by variables. Now, what happens if you want to do the opposite? Instead of removing variables, you want to just select variables. Say, I'm more focused on here's the ones I want to retain. So it's kind of looking at it from the other side of things. So select variables. So if you want to select variables, specifically multiple variables, we can actually use a function from dplyr. So this does come from that same dplyr package we've previously accessed here, and it's called the select function. Okay, so what we'll do is let's again call this new data frame new merge df. So we'll override it, do the left-handed arrow to say we're naming it. We'll use pipes again. So we're going to take the merge df data frame and add a pipe after it to pipe that data frame to the following function, which is select. And what we do now is just list the variables we wish to select, or in other words, retain. And so let's keep last name, first name, and let's say start date to gender and start date too. Okay, so let's do last name. And then the next argument is going to be first name, gender, and the fourth argument is going to be start date to that new start date variable we created. Okay, and so if we run this line here, we're just saying select these. We go and look at this data frame. Now we just have a data frame with those values here. This is sometimes really handy if you want to run a correlation matrix on these aren't numeric data where you'd run a correlation matrix, but let's just say these all were numeric variables and you just wanted to run it on a subset, create an entire matrix. This is one quick way that you can do that. Okay, but what if we wanted to do the opposite? We want to remove multiple variables. So here I removed a single variable, but what if we want to remove multiple variables? We can actually use that select function again, okay? And so to do so, we will again, let's actually copy this line to work from it. So and paste it here below. And so we've got the new merge df data frame we're overriding. And then we're piping the merge df data frame, okay? And let's say that, oh, actually what we wanted to do here was that we wanted to remove these four variables. Oops, so in that case, what we need to do is we need to do a minus sign, which in the select function means to remove or eliminate, and then the C function here, okay? And so within And we need to make sure, because we added another parenthesis there, that we have a concluding parenthesis there. And so what we're going to do is we're saying, okay, remove this vector of 4 variables here from the merge df data frame. If you remember, this is the original data frame where we removed ID, but everything else is remaining there. Okay, so let's go ahead and click run. All right, now let's take a look at this new merge df data frame that we created. And there we go. We still have the original start date variable, but start date 2 is gone. Last name, first name, those are gone. Gender is gone. And so here we've removed multiple variables. Okay, so to wrap up, in this tutorial, we learned how to filter and subset cases, as well as how to remove specific cases and multiple cases, single cases, and so forth. We also learned how to remove a single variable, how to select multiple variables, as well as how to remove multiple variables. Thank you very much.